Hi Booktube, it's Amy and I'm back again with the Private Papers of a Bankrupt Bookseller by Will Y. Darling. It's been a few days since we last read, but we will begin here today on page 150 with a section titled Rejection. She was radiant. I thought her perfect. I could not believe that a more charming creature ever was. I thought of Mary of Scotland, Madame de Pompadour, Helen of Troy. They did not compare with her in the way the very thoughts of her stirred me. Today it was the forenoon. She asked me about a book. Heaven knows what she can want with it. It's called The Manners and Tone of Good Society by the Honourable Mrs. Dowdall. I went to look up the list. I thought it was done by Black, but I wasn't sure. I was rather a time in finding it, and she and her friend came up past the desk behind which I was turning the pages. She mustn't have thought I was in earshot, for she said to her companion, "I wish that pimply-faced prig of a bookseller would hurry. I have to be at Madame Austen's at 11. My pimply face reddened, and as I told her a few seconds later, I would get the book for her in 2 days. But the redness she could not know was the setting sun of a foolish regard. And the next section is titled Books Which Are No Books. Lamb, is it Lamb, has written about books which are no books, but today I think all books are books as sure as eggs are eggs. There are books which men may think are no books, yet they are books profitable to read and profitable to sell. My mind warms to them this day of grace, for I have an order for Debrets Peerage and titles of courtesy. Now this work, which is published by Dean & Son Limited, who, by the way, also published quite a good lot of rag books for children, is all fat for the bookseller. He is not expected to keep Debrett's Peerage in stock any more than he is expected to keep a peer on his premises. He gets it to order. The procedure may be imagined. Carriage draws up to his plebeian door. Carriage, that is, or car, Rolls-Royce, or Daimler, or Mulliner body. Bookseller emerges expectant. Peer or peeress remains until footman or chauffeur, if slightly decayed or very independent family, removes dustcloth or rug from knees. Peer or peeress alights. Bookseller, anticipatory, greets patron. Patron covers both sexes for the bookseller. Patroness is a bizarre term. Bizarre as in not bizarre, but as bazaar, as in the marketplace, a marketplace term. You can get me Debrett. The bookseller doesn't doubt it for a moment. If he is just an ordinary fellow, he just acquiesces and gives laud and honor for the order. If he knows his business, he asks, "What binding do you prefer?" If the patron is buying his first copy of Debrett, a divine opportunity presents itself. The bookseller can say, if he has had lessons to prevent stammering, "Would you have the limp morocco, round corners, gilt edges printed on thin paper, or would you rather have the Levant morocco, gold edges, specially bound? The limp is £6, the Levant £5. The patron might demur, and although this is almost miraculous, yet if such demurring actually took place, the stammer-proof bookseller would then go on to say coyly, "Of course, there is the leather gilt, the same book as the Levant, gilt-edged, bound, specially for £14 10 shillings, or rather £4 10 shillings. And there is the Royal Octavo cloth gilt, emblazoned cover for £3 15 shillings. If impressed, the bookseller, to fill up a gap, could say, "These prices are net," or he might say, "If you would care for your coat of arms, I can have it imprinted gilt on the back cover for 12 shillings. These are some of the possibilities which arise out of the demand for Debrett, although my own experience was simpler. A manservant called and told me to order a Debrett. I delivered it in due course, the 90 shillings won, and it is still unpaid. Debrett is an entertaining work. The introductory articles are well worth reading and often surprising information about the peerage. Baronetage, knightage, and companionage is as entertaining as anything I sell. It has a companion book, Debrett's House of Commons and the Judicial Bench, which, if not so lordly in appearance, is less lordly in price. You can choose half-bound leather for 25 shillings or the cloth gilt for 20 shillings. More popular than Debrett, however, is Who's Who, and the stories that those who appear in that work tell about themselves always amuse me. If one can be said to browse in the meadows of literature, I am prepared to admit that I have browsed in the pages of Who's Who. One goes from one name to another and wonders if one would recognize the writers from their own description of their origins, their education, their achievements, and most of their recreations. A and C Black publish Who's Who, as indeed they also are responsible for Who Was Who, a sort of book of final entry for the ferryman, and Who's Who in the theatre. I have a copy, it is not this year's, of Athena, a yearbook of the Learned World, which the same publishers do, an odd lot. I think and fit to stand with its neighbor on my shelf, the Directory of Directors. The Directory of Directors has suggested to me the politics of politicians, the divinity of divines, and the books of the booksellers, but these would hardly make books of reference. My other books of reference, I see, include Whitaker's Almanac, Oliver and Boyd's Edinburgh Almanac, the Statesman Yearbook, the Railway Yearbook, the Daily Mail Yearbook, and Brown's Nautical Almanac. Heaven knows why I have so many, and they are so heavily and so ostentatiously dated too, in this up-to-the-minute universe. I fear they will remain behind if I don't sell them soon. Atlases and dictionaries are safer stock. Atlases do go out surprisingly too, but I am not so hampered with them as with the books of reference. The pocket road map atlases are a bother. The motorists are so insistent on the new roads. I have told them that a wrong map may show them more than a right one, but they received this counsel rather coolly. One man had glassy eyes, which he turned on me like a basilisk when I said it, and yet it may be true. My dictionaries today are well to the fore. Nuttall, Chambers, Collins are all good, but I recommend the concise Oxford Dictionary before all others. Dictionaries of quotations include Bartlett's Familiar Quotations, which Macmillan published, and I have a second-hand copy of a little one of Nelson's, which can go for 2 shillings. My best possession, among all the books of reference, I would not exchange it for Debrett, is a classical dictionary of 1809 by J. Lempriere, D.D. Mine is the 7th edition, and it has often been for me verily the 7th heaven. It really is not for sale, but anyone who wants to make reference in it may do so. There is no book in all my shop I value more. Is a gazetteer a book of reference? I think it must be. No one would want to read the Ordnance Gazetteer of Scotland. It is in 6 volumes, faded blue cloth, a bulky lot of pictures of Highland scenery and border castles introduced the letterpress. Maps, crease-worn, are at the end. Scotland is a beautiful country, but my gazetteer does little to advertise it. These new journalistic writers know their trade better than those who compiled my set. I am a good bookseller. Here I am disparaging my wares. Some books I won't sell because I like them too much, because I am too fond of them. Others, and the Gazetteer is one, I wouldn't sell because it would be a shame to take the money. It is a librarian I ought to be, and not a bookseller. The sense of profit-making is not in me, and labor as I will, I cannot create it. In a neighboring town, for I must not advertise, there are 2 men in my calling. One has above his door the word bookseller with his name. The other, and I know him well, has only the simple single word, books. The gulf which lies between the schoolman of the Middle Ages and the modern American super salesman is not more effectively expressed than the difference between him who puts up the sign bookseller and the other who simply labels himself books. And the next section is titled The Daughter of Joy. In the park, boys are playing football and girls are pushing perambulators with not too absurd imitations of themselves in them. The night is about to fall on us all, and the lamps are already lit. Grimly I sit on a seat alone, aloft, solitary, unsought, unseeking. A girl of 7 pushes her poor perambulator in front of her and glances keenly towards me. Heaven knows why, but she looked in my direction. Her glance reached me and dropped. She scrambled forward and seized something lying on the asphalt path. It was a penny. "It's not yours, mister?" she queried. "No," I replied. I don't know what she did with that penny, but she was transfigured. a daughter of joy in a city of dreadful sadness and sin. And we'll leave the reading at that for today. The next section here is titled Books with Pictures, Plain and Colored. And we will follow that up with Necromancy and Improving Books. But that is all for today's reading.